sleepwalkers do strange things.
Hello everybody, welcome back to Screenstars. I'm here today to bring you my review for the 2021 science fiction horror, science fiction really, film The Thing Inside Us. A film that is written and directed by Paul Calamanoto, and it stars Christine Tonry as Shelley and Chad Graham as Daniel, who play husband and wife. Now essentially what happens here is there is a global pandemic that you learn at the beginning of this, and I know many of you are probably rolling your eyes right now because this is like a plot point that's been forced into many low budget films at the minute, and I was very similar to you. I did roll my eyes a little bit about this as well, but bear with me. And this pandemic's called LV, and then we meet this couple, this husband and wife, Shelley and Daniel. Now, Shelley, for the past 2.5 years, has been sleepwalking, or so they think. And at a certain point of the night, gets out of bed, walks outside, stands at the same point in the yard, and kind of looks up to the sky. And this has been going on for 2.5 years. And the husband has been documenting all of this using cameras. So this is... the bulk of the film is found footage, really, even though it's one of those found footage films that isn't always found footage. There are some shots where it isn't found footage, but it's kind of filmed in that style. So, she's been sleepwalking for 2.5 years. She's been filming and documenting all this. She's been doing a vlog on the internet to ask people for help and advice, so on and so forth. And it escalates from there, I suppose, is the fairest thing to say. And things get gradually worse until the husband, Daniel, suspects that there may be something a little bit more otherworldly going on. Right, what are my thoughts on The Thing Inside Us? Now, this is an odd one, in a sense of, at first glance, it's very easy to dismiss this film. It's low budget. There's very few cast members here. You've mainly only got the husband and wife, and then there's like a police officer, a therapist that turns up on a Teams type meeting, and a neighbour, or who's like the landlord, I think. And that's it, really. So it's a very, very small cast, as you would expect for a low budget film. And there are aspects of it that do feel cheap, and there are aspects of it that feel like it's got forced plot points, as I mentioned, the pandemic thing, which is being overused right now. So I was quite cynical when I first started watching this film. I didn't actually think much of it early on. There were things happening in the film, and I do stand by a lot of the things I was thinking. She's been sleepwalking for 2.5 years, and he didn't think to get a bed alarm or something to wake him when she gets out of bed. And even though they do address that in the film, because somebody suggests it on an email to him, and he gets something in place, then it doesn't work necessarily. But it took him 2.5 years to think of this, or for someone else to suggest it to him. So there's a lot of things that they attempt to do in this film that just raise the question to me. You haven't thought to do these things for the past 2.5 years? You're just thinking of doing them now, and most people are suggesting these things to you? It just seemed a little bit odd. You know, if he knew that she was getting up at a certain point in the night, I mean, the first time we learn of this, it's like almost like the first shot of the film. She gets out of bed, goes outside, and then it cuts to him, and he wakes up in the morning, gets out of bed, has a yawn, a stretch, goes outside, and starts filming, for the vlog. But she's freezing cold. Wouldn't you set the alarm to wake yourself up at the time she gets up at? And even if you can't coerce her back into the house or wake her from the trance she appears to be in, wouldn't you kind of throw like a dressing gown over her? Or something to cover her feet because she's barefoot, to keep her feet warm, or something, anything, to make the whole experience a little bit more comfortable for her. It just seemed like really odd that even though he was trying to figure things out, he was making really poor decisions. So there are those problems with the film that are scattered around it, and that's very, very obvious when you watch it. I was also quite cynical because there's a therapist that they use in the film. It's trying to make reason it and stuff, and he appears right like he's a bad actor or really monotone, but that explains itself away later in the film, so I could dismiss that criticism. There's also a cop that comes round because there's a part in the film where she goes missing. And you're thinking to yourself, well, he's like the worst cop ever. Again, that is explained later in the film, so that dismisses that criticism. So it's almost like the early eye rolling that you do in this film, or much of the criticisms you have early in this film, are explained away later in the film. So I would ask you, if you're going to watch this film and you're a fan of alien invasion films, or you're a fan of things like Invasion of the Body Snatchers, which this film very much is trying to do its own version of, be patient with this film, because there's actually a point in this film where you're kind of thinking, this is quite interesting actually. I quite like what they're doing here. And there's a lot of good ideas going on in this film. I do think how they've used the pandemic is interesting and clever. It's better than many of these low budget films that I'm seeing right now, where they are using the pandemic basically just to turn people into zombies for the most part. This tries to do something clever and interesting with the whole pandemic scenario, which I thought was pretty good. So it was, aspects of it were really interesting, but there are aspects of it as well that are flawed. It's one of those films that I'm glad I had the patience to see it through, because it was ultimately quite rewarding in parts. So yeah, give this one a chance, guys. If you're a fan of sci-fi and you're a fan of things like Invasion of the Body Snatchers, there's actually quite a lot going on here that's pretty interesting. It's not a horror film, not really, even though it's listed as horror on IMDb. I would suggest this is really pretty much sci-fi. So I'm going to give this one a 5 out of 10. It's not bad. It's quite worth your time if you want to give it a shot, this one, guys. So thanks for watching. I hope you like this review, and of course I will be back with plenty more reviews and content on the channel very, very soon.